I don't know, several $100 million worth of shit over the last 10 years.
No, it was just, all around tough. Like I failed English because I couldn't understand my English teacher. She had an
Yeah,
accent. Like I couldn't understand half the people. I
yeah,
couldn't open up a locker and I was too embarrassed to ask people. So I had to go after school to try to figure out how the stupid combination worked. The thing is that, look, it's fine to reach for the $1 billion businesses. Okay. It's okay. The
yeah,
question is when you want to reach for it, right? If that's the first thing right off the bat that you're doing for a brand new entrepreneur, then that's very demoralizing because you didn't make where you're trying to go. If you
yeah,
want to get to the $1 billion business or $100 million business, no problem. You can do that. Just don't make it your first one, right?
yeah,
As long as it's your second or your third venture that you're trying to build onto, then it's okay. But the first one, you want to try to find a niche. I'm not telling you this that everything I've launched worked. We had an adult diaper company called Diaper Express that failed. We
adult
had a
diaper company.
Yeah, adult diaper company called Diaper Express, right? We actually started selling AED defibrillators, which was called AED Masters. That didn't work. We wanted to sell a canes company, a walking canes company called Lifetime Canes. That failed. We actually launched cufflinks,
Yeah,
order cufflink stuff. Yeah, you're cool.
all right, what's up, Hunaid, man? Welcome to the pod. Glad to have you on. You've got a pretty cool background. You've been doing e-commerce shit now for like 10 plus years, right? You've had your own websites. You've done stuff on Amazon. You've sold product. You've sold service. So you've done sort of a lot of things in the space. Probably sold, I don't know, several $100 million worth of shit over the last 10 years. And I can't think of anybody better to talk to than to kind of learn more about e-commerce and kind of learn a little bit more about how you got into the space, your start, where you are currently right now, and what kind of companies you're working on and working with right now. So thanks for taking the time to get on, man.
Yeah, for sure.
So I guess let's get into it, man. So you're originally from Pakistan, right?
Yep.
Okay. Were you born in Pakistan or were you
Yep.
born
Born and raised in
born and
Pakistan.
raised? So when did you come from Pakistan to America?
It's when I was 15 years old, somewhere around high school.
Okay. Did you have a computer before? Had you worked on a computer before coming to America?
I did. So I think 3, 4 years before my mom and dad actually bought me a computer. They didn't buy it for me for a long time because they were afraid I was going to open it up and kind of like, take all the parts out.
Wait, why were they afraid of that? Had you done something like that before or what?
Yeah. I opened up everything, like my toys, my cars, anything they gave me. I took a screwdriver to it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I was just like curious, right? Like I just wanted to know what's inside. So
yeah.
everything that I opened up, I never was able to put it back together. So they were like,
It's so funny. I would take a drill because at the time we had like a power drill, so I would just be like because I couldn't even sometimes align the screws properly. I would just drill right through the middle of the item sometimes. I was that reckless with my shit too. So yeah, so I know exactly where you're coming from. So yeah, you'd open things up a lot as a kid. So your parents.
yeah, we did that a lot. Like, the first day I deleted all the auto exe bad files and all that, and the Windows
Yeah,
95 or something like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so it stopped working, went back, got it fixed, and came back. So I did that like a whole bunch of times, and then I figured out how it works. I
Yeah,
found
yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, fair enough. So you end up coming when you were around 15. Why'd your parents come? What happened there?
for education, right? For the most part, that
Yeah.
was the biggest thing: is education, safety, security, future.
Were you I've had people that have had mixed opinions about this coming in and leaving. What were your I know some people who are so fond of like their memories in Pakistan. Some have gone back as adults, like when they became like our age or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
do you still have like did you when you left were you sad to be leaving, or were you like I'm excited for this new venture, this new like
So
journey, whatever?
so I was definitely sad, right? Because I was 14 years old, 15 years old, and it was
Yeah,
like high school, right? So
yeah,
I had my friends in play. I had,
yeah,
everybody I knew in the community in school. So like you have
yeah,
like 100, 150 friends. And the thing in Pakistan is like everybody's desi, right? So like you get mixed in with people very easily too. In that scenario.
yeah,
Uh, and so it's was kind of cool, but then when I came here, I let go all my friends. I couldn't speak English fluently. I
And
didn't
you didn't
understand.
even have a way to keep in touch with them, right? Like at that time, it's like it's almost like that's it. It's you're not gonna get on a phone. You're not gonna get a calling card and fucking call
No,
Pakistan. You
nothing.
know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, there's nothing, right? No phone, no
yeah,
internet.
yeah,
I didn't even have AOL Messenger at that time, and there was no Skype, so none of that. Like, I didn't even have a phone, right? Because the phones were like big, clunky kind
right,
that
right,
just.
right, right, right.
So
So you,
yeah, it sucked, but
yeah. So I
so,
guess when you got here, what was that like? So you got here when you were, I guess, so you were 14 or 15, right? So
yeah,
when
some
you,
around.
yeah. So when you get here, you're about high school. You're about, I guess, starting high school or maybe like a sophomore in high school.
Dude, it
What was
was
that
rough.
like?
It was really bad. I ate pepperoni for like 2 weeks, and then like it
You had
got.
no idea, right? Obviously.
I had no
Yeah.
idea. I thought that shit looked like beef. I just thought
Yeah.
American beef tastes like shit. Like
Yeah.
So I ate it, and then I met one of my friends who was just smiling, and like they goes, "Hey man, you eat beef and pork?" And I go, "Nah, bro, I don't eat pork." And he goes, "Bro, you've been eating pork right now." I was like, "Oh shit."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
No, it was just all around tough. Like I failed English because I couldn't understand my English teacher. She had an
Yeah.
accent. Like I couldn't understand half the people. I
Yeah.
couldn't open up a locker, and I was too embarrassed to ask people. So I had to go after school to try to figure out how the stupid combination worked. Um,
You were too embarrassed to ask people at what at I guess, I mean, that's tough, yeah, because you don't want to look dumb, right? But at the same time, it's like, does that kind of stick with you? You think do you still have that today, where you're like, man, I don't, does that, like, that feeling still stick around with you, or are you like, fuck it,
um,
I'm gonna ask the question now?
Not anymore.
Yeah,
Not anymore. Now I really don't give a shit. Like
yeah,
now it's
yeah,
fine.
yeah.
'Cause but
It's
the
liberating. It's liberating to get there. It's just tough
yeah,
when you're not there
it's
yet.
hard. Like, especially even with the accent. Like I had a terrible accent. Like it's like when you're in PE and you don't want nobody wants to pick you, even if they're short a team member,
Yeah.
because you double dribble, right? Like you double
Right.
dribble and like you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So it was like that kind of a
yeah,
feeling, and
yeah.
then all these other American kids that are like born and raised here look down, like they go, "Hey man, this guy just showed up off
I
the
mean,
boat."
no one picked me either, and I was born here. You know what I mean? So we're good. I think, again, we have another parallel right there, man. So I guess I mean, it's obviously rough. There's a culture shock too, right? So like, there's like that language barrier or whatever. So like, were there, how did you kind of get past that? Was it just like kind of the immersion, just being surrounded by people speaking English all the time? Like, what was it? What was like the
No,
thing that you did?
to be honest with you, the thing that helped me the most was Mosaic. I think I'm sure pretty much most people are familiar with Mosaic. So I didn't have any friends. So somebody came to me and said, "Hey, I see you come to Jamaican every day, and then you're the first
Yeah,
one to leave, right?" And so I was living in like an apartment across Jamaican.
yeah.
And so they basically told me that, "Hey, why don't you join Mosaic?" So I did Mosaic the first year, and then
And that's just a camp
people.
for a bunch of kids between like 8 and, I guess,
Yeah,
is it 8 and 15 or 8 and 14?
it's actually six. I think 6 to 13,
Okay.
or 6 to 14, something like that.
Okay.
And then you become a counselor and a guide and stuff like
Right,
that.
right, right, right.
You can help out and stuff. So I wasn't able to be a participant. I went straight to be a guide.
Right. Okay.
And so it's kind of cool because I got to meet a lot of people. I made friends. I made a lot of friends very quickly over there. And then I had to start improving my accent and started memorizing words. Like even now, like, that you'll see a lot
We'll still catch you on a few things here and there. Yeah.
yeah, it's still not perfect, right? Especially when I'm drinking, right? It's just even worse. Uh, but the thing is that I have to concentrate because there are certain words that I can't pronounce. So I go around it. I go around those words. Like I
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
pronounce my V's and my W's. So
yeah.
very,
When the words are coming up, are you like, fuck, 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 fuck?
yeah,
Is that
yeah,
like
yeah.
what's happening? Are you like, man, what am I gonna do? Is
Yeah,
that is
I avoid the word wedding for sure because I can't say it.
that
Right? So,
Yeah, yeah.
but I had to start memorizing these words so that way I could start to kind of fit into the culture. I could speak fluent English, and it was rough, but you know what? It's fine. It's okay. You get over it, right? I mean, you
Right,
just kind of work on it and figure it
right.
out.
Right, right, right.
Um,
And I think it seems like that's been like a good underlying theme for a lot of the shit that I've seen you so far, like I don't know you too well, obviously, but I know you well enough that I've kind of seen some of the projects and stuff that you're working on, and it seems like that's kind of I mean, that's the thing that for most entrepreneurs is right. Like if it's not going to kill the business, it's only going to make it stronger, kind of, you know. So you kind of have to get through it. So you end up graduating from high school, and then you end up at UT. So I
Yeah,
see the hoodie on right now.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. I went.
so what'd you end up studying at UT?
So I started off with computer science, and then I took the first test, and I was like, nope, that ain't for me. So I let go of computer science. The whole time I was thinking, I'm going to do computer science, and then I quit that. And then so I figured I'll do math, and then I took 2 or 3 courses in math, and I was like, nope, probability and all that shit. I made a C, and I was like, nope, can't do math because it was like not
Yeah,
as
yeah,
easy.
yeah.
So then I figured out, let me try physics. So I tried to do physics, and then that didn't work either. And I was like, man, you know what? I just got to go. So, and then somebody told me, why don't you just do business because it's just easy.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
go, all right, cool. So I was like, all right, fuck it, I'll do business. So I did my
So
finance.
you're like killing everybody that's like has a business degree right now. You know what I mean? Like literally everybody that like took the easy way out, you motherfuckers.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
easy, right? Because like all the other courses are like you gotta it's a technical skill, right? So you really gotta know what you're doing. Like with business, you can bullshit a lot of concepts and kind of get away with it.
True. 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 True.
So I did my finance and I got accounting degree, and then
Well, you went to one of the best schools for accounting, so let's not like understate the fact that it was. I'm sure it was a tough
it's
degree
a
to.
good school. I mean, there are better schools out there, but it's a good school. I mean, it's not a bad school at all. It's got a good name for our business. But I learned a lot. Like I took a lot of SQL courses, and I took a lot of simple tech stuff, right? Not
Yeah.
very complex.
Yeah.
And I basically built the companies around with that knowledge. That was
Yeah.
about it.
So that's actually a really smart point. So I think if you're probably one of these guys that are in school now, maybe in undergrad, and they're considering like a career in entrepreneurship and business or any of that shit, like a good idea. I mean, if you're going to go to school, if you're going to be in there, is to probably start getting familiar with the tech side of things too, because you're going to need that language. You're going to be using that language to communicate with people, even if you don't know what the
Oh,
fuck
for
you're doing,
sure.
right?
For sure. I mean, knowing the basics of technology and how it works
Yeah.
is the only way to be able to navigate around developers and how to work that. Right? I mean, to be an entrepreneur, it's just like you kind of have to be a little bit of jack of all trades to be able to
Yeah.
know marketing, to be able to know tech. Now, I'm not the expert
Yeah.
in all the fields, but I have enough knowledge to be able to have that communication with everybody.
Yeah. I think what I've started to realize is like taking on this entrepreneurship shit now. I think what you start realizing is you're an expert at bringing people together and like
Exactly.
bridging gaps. I think that's kind of like you're almost like a consultant, but you're your own consultant for your own company, which is obviously way better, right?
Yeah,
But
for
that's
sure.
that's effectively what it feels like to me, like a good CEO or the good founder or the good owner of a company is because they don't know everything. I mean, you can't know everything in your
Yeah.
company, or you can't
Yeah.
be the best at everything. So
It's not possible. Yeah, it's absolutely not possible. But it's good to surround yourself with people that are the best, right? Because a lot of times you can have the smartest people in the world, but they don't have direction and they don't know
yeah,
what to code and what to write or what to build or what to design, right?
yeah,
I've got graphic guys that they will run circles around me in terms of Photoshop and
yeah,
InDesign skills, right? But
yeah,
but but how to think about it, how to think about a design from a business perspective, how to think about a UI that converts,
yeah,
that goes beyond the skill of a software, right?
yeah.
So that's the key that you have to be able to deploy.
No, agreed. And I guess this is probably a good question to think about too. It's like I know when I was younger, when I was in law school, things like that, or whenever I was in school, man, if I was around people that were way smarter than me, I was just like, oh, fuck me, man. It's going to be tough. It's going to be a tough room to navigate through because we're all looking at the same problem. And it's like, all right,
Yeah,
not the brightest guy. It's kind of tough.
yeah,
Now, I think as an entrepreneur, you don't necessarily have to be the brightest guy, but you want to be bright enough to be able to work and communicate with everybody. So, like now, today, does that ever happen to you where you're like, oh yeah, I'm around this guy who's like way smarter than me, whether he's in my company or anything like that. Do you ever feel intimidation from that kind of from being around people that you think might be brighter than you? Is that in any
no,
way impact your like
it
interaction with people?
it used to, but not anymore, to be honest with you, because now I actually use that as power. Like even when I'm working with teams and communities and I'm working with people that are in the office or are in teams along with me, I tell them that, guys, you're smarter than me. And I say that all the
Yeah. I've been using that line too. Yeah, it's the truth. It's
time.
like it's so the
I was
truth.
like,
Yeah.
bro, you're like 10 times smarter than I am. So,
Yeah.
if I'm able to do something of this nature, you should be able to do a little bit more of it. But let me come in and do certain things, where I can bridge the gap. So to be honest with you, like if you look at my CTO and my graphics and my marketing teams and all of that, these people are 10 times smarter than me. As a matter of fact, I joke with them and I tell them, if I ever go back to an MBA, I'll pay for your MBA so you come with me and help me with
Yeah.
my work.
Yeah. That's a smart idea. It's funny. Yeah, no doubt. So I guess that makes sense. I mean, and over the years, I'm sure, and it's funny that you have like a CTO now and all this stuff. I again imagine in the beginning there was no such role, right? In the beginning, it's like, what the fuck is a CTO? What the fuck is a
Yeah,
CTO? It's kind of just us. It's kind of you just doing a lot of it, right? So I
yeah.
guess let's get into how you kind of get into the space. So you graduate from UT, right? You do you don't do it in physics, no comp sci, you do it in accounting background. So what
Yes.
do you do when you get out of there? And then how do you go from, I guess, like that graduation point to your first business?
So what I did is I got a job at Deloitte, right? So one of the cool things I did is I already knew that I wasn't the smartest kid in UT. Okay, simple as that. I mean, we had a class of 200 that graduated. 25 of us had a 4.0. Okay, so that means 10% of my school had a
Yeah.
4.0. Okay, so all
Yeah.
these like smart ass Asians running around with like big
Right.
backpacks, right? And I'm going,
Right.
okay, there's no way I could beat these guys, right?
Yeah.
So what I ended up doing is I flipped it. I went heavy on the experience side. So as a freshman, I went and I worked for this hedge fund guy, and I said, listen, bro, I'll wash your cars, I'll do whatever, right?
Yeah.
Just let me be around your environment.
Yeah.
So I worked there for free. I used to go to
How
his
did you
house,
find him? How did you find him? Like, how did somebody find a fucking hedge fund guy? Like,
Googled
how do you
them.
know?
I just Googled hedge fund guys in
Yeah, it's easier now with LinkedIn, obviously, but yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
just reached out and I said, listen, I just want to be an intern. I'll do whatever, just keep me around, right? So what I did is for my sophomore internship, I used my freshman internship, which was, I basically told them exactly what the interns were doing there. I
Yeah.
just didn't tell them I was one of those interns, right? So I was talking about all the agents and all the work. And so my bullshit was very real because it was based on real stuff,
Okay.
right? So I was like, look, listen, I have experience. I have internship. I had a letter of recommendation from this guy. He just looked at me and he goes, here, let me write you something. I wrote it. He just signed it, right? So
You're right.
he knew
Right.
it was coming from him, whatever. And then I got another internship as a sophomore at another company. And then in junior year, I got it with USAA. And so when I went for
That's an
my
insurance agency, right? So USA is an insurance agency.
yeah, so I
Okay.
did insurance agency when I was a sophomore. Then I did Deloitte when I was a junior. So in my senior year, I had a lot of extensive experience. My GPA was
Yeah.
not good. It was 3.5, 3.6. It wasn't terrible, but it wasn't good,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
If you're in UT, you got to have at least a 4.8, 4.0 or 3.8 or 3.7, whatever.
Yeah.
So when I went for these interviews, my last year I did 15 of them and I got 12 offers only because I had experience. And when they said, hey, why is your GPA 3.5? I said, bro, look at me. Like I have a working record. But throughout college, I worked 40 hours because I didn't have money. My parents didn't give me money. So, I had to make my own living.
Yeah.
So I was literally working full time. But to be honest with you, that's the key to success. At the end of the day, a lot of people they don't work through college. And I think that's really bad because focusing on just education is not cool. You
Yeah,
gotta
I
have
think that's super
experience.
sound. That's super fucking sound. Yeah, I wish I had known that I mean, I was doing bullshit jobs too, but yeah, I think that's a big difference because even now, like I think I saw this interview with Mark Cuban the other day and it's like an old interview, like a Vanity Fair interview or something. And he was like, who would you hire? Somebody with experience or somebody with potential? And it's like anybody who owns a business now fucking knows the answer to that. I would have said, oh, potential back in the day. Now I would say, no,
Oh,
no, no,
right.
experience.
It's
I'll take the guy with
experience.
experience all fucking day.
Yeah, for sure. Because you don't want to teach them basic shit, right? You don't want to teach them how to show
100%.
up on time and how to do like simple stuff, right? So
Right.
anyway, so I brushed up a lot of my Excel skills, Access skills there, and so I was working for Deloitte for 2 years, and I asked my partners, I was like, listen, how long will it take me to get to your 250, $300,000 a year? And he said it's gonna take 10 years, and I go, I don't got 10 years, I gotta
Yeah.
get there quicker. And he
Yeah.
goes, that's the only way to do it, right? He said that's the only way to do it. So anyways, I said, fine. I gave it 2 years. I worked at Deloitte. While I did that, I started a company on the side.
And
Oh,
the company that you started on the side, How did you start it? What was the process like there? So you're working, so now it seems to me like you're always doing two things at once. Like it's not,
Yeah.
at least up to this point in your life. So you're still working at Deloitte and you're like, all right, I'm going to go do a startup on my own.
But anyways, like I think there's always a transition plan, right? Because I've always had a transition plan. You never leave one before the other. So while I was at Deloitte, I used to work 9 to 6 at Deloitte, and then from 7 to about 2 a.m., 3 a.m. for the first tech company, and then I was coding myself. I was doing everything by myself. I mean, I was so.
Because you had
Anyways,
just enough information from the comp sci days. Is that right? From when you were first starting
yeah,
out, that was
it
enough
was
for you?
just a base. It was just a base, right? Like we were, and the first venture wasn't even like an e-commerce company of my own. It was actually we were building websites for other people, right? Using existing frameworks like Joomlas and stuff like that in the back in the
I don't
day,
know what that is. Yeah, I don't know what that is.
right?
Okay.
Yeah, so it's
But wait, so
basically
if you don't have, if you just have like the basic skill, right? And
yeah.
then, so, okay, so walk me through that. So you have like, you obviously know just enough to maybe do the base. Who's coming in and doing the rest? How did you find that person? Was it like a friend
Nobody. It was me. It was
or just
Google.
you? Okay.
Yeah, you
Okay.
just
Okay.
Google it, right? You say, hey, how does this work? Oh, cool. And then you say, hey, how do you set up a server? And it tells you exactly how to do it, right? Back in
Did
the
your
day,
client know? Did your client know that you didn't
no, no idea.
outsource that,
But bro,
right?
I did that for Deloitte. Like even
Yeah.
Deloitte, these guys are charging $350. Like this guy came to me, it's like a big oil company that I had to build their stock system, right?
Yeah.
They gave me the project and I go, oh, okay, well, what now? He goes, no, build it in Access. And I go, okay. So
Yeah.
I'm learning this shit from scratch while building the client at the same time, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not they're claiming me as an expert, and I go, bro, I've never done this in my life before. So and then they look at me and go, hey, figure it out.
Yeah, I think the idea is that I've realized that with a lot of consulting shit, it's like the idea is that you're an expert at learning. And I think that's effectively what it is. You're not an expert at the thing because
No,
that's ridiculous. I mean, how
absolutely.
can you be an expert at this company's internal project or like the fully understanding an oil and gas? I mean, if you don't have an oil and gas background, you're not an expert in anything oil and gas related. Let's be
No
honest.
way. I work for Fannie Mae to do computer controls, and then they just gave me binders and said, "Here, this is how it's done, and now you figure it out." And
Yeah.
I mean, it was fun stuff, but you're just sitting there and you're going, "Okay, all right, I'll figure it out."
Yeah.
So having resources to be able to figure it out is one thing, but
Yeah.
nowadays everything is on YouTube, man. Like
Right.
if you don't know how to do something, just Google it and it's there. Like
Right.
you just have to read it.
Right. Agreed. No, totally agreed. I think the only time that it comes in handy, like when you have a resource available, from my experience, has been it saves you. It helps you get to optimize quickly. I think
Yeah,
that's
for
been the
sure.
benefit I've seen of having an expert or like that, even if it's not
100%.
an internal team or like at least someone you can contact or whatever as a resource has been that particular thing.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. It's like I think it's the time value of money, right? So what you have to realize that back in the day when you have no worth, right? You don't have time value of money. Then at
your
that
time
point,
is worth nothing. Right.
exactly right. So if you try to figure something out in 5 hours, it's fine. It's not a big deal because, or you give somebody else $100 to figure it out in an hour, right? But at
Yeah.
that point, time value of money doesn't exist. So you're okay to spend that 5 hours. Today, I wouldn't try to do that by myself, right?
Right.
I would
Right. You
want
would
somebody else.
hire or you would bring the expert in. Right. You would leverage your
Yeah,
resources or whatever. Right. Yeah. No, makes sense. But I think, yeah, if you're in your early 20s, I think it's the truth. I mean, let's be honest, or you're like a teenager even, right? Your time is really, in fact, you're kind of in a sort of a really lucky position because you've got all the time in the world. You know what I mean? And you've got
yeah,
like access at this point now to all the resources in the world. And there's no real major implication. You know what I mean? When you're in college or whatever, there's no other bills to pay other than just room and board. More
exactly.
often than not, that's covered by loans too. So it's like, or by your parents, right? So not many
Yeah,
people are working to pay off their entire student or their bills while they're in school. So whatever the
I,
case is,
I 100% agree.
so yeah, I think that's like the best time to soak it in, and I think it was smart that you hopped into so many different things. I think that's a really, really, really. I think that set you up for success in more ways than you probably knew, because I don't think you were thinking at the time. Like when you were in college, were you thinking, "All right, cool, I'm going to be this fucking massive major player on Amazon. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that." I don't think you probably had those visions. Maybe you might have. I don't know. Maybe you can speak to that.
No, not at all. My dream car was a BMW 330 Ci convertible.
Oh, hey, hey.
That was my dream car. Like
No
34.
disrespect. That's a great car. Hey, that's a good car. That's a good car. For sure. For sure.
But see, the thing is, I think a lot of people that waste their 20s and their teen time, that's just stupidity, because that's what allowed me to flip. So, the funny thing is, when I was at Deloitte, one of my managers told me like, hey, so I was quitting. So literally went to Deloitte one day, and I applied for an internship in Tajikistan for 6 months during the golden time, whatever, 10 years ago, right? 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And so I basically told him, I was like, listen, I'm going to quit. I'm not going to do this anymore. And he looked at me like, you're an idiot. And all my friends are like, you're stupid for quitting a job most people want, right? After 2 years.
Deloitte is a very competitive firm to get into. It's not an easy firm. So yeah,
It's not
definitely.
easy for him to get into, right? So basically, I told my dad that, listen, if I fall, will you catch me? And he goes, sure. What do you need? I was like, I just need $1,000 a month, and a roof and some food on the table, and I'm good. And
Yeah.
he goes, then you're gonna quit? And I go, yeah, I'm gonna quit. So what I did is so I had already established a company. The company had revenue. It was probably making like $1,000, $2,000 of profit, right? It wasn't making a lot of money.
This is that company that was where you were making websites for people. Is this the one? Or was
No,
it a different one?
it's the one after. So this was
Okay.
one of the first healthcare education companies that we had started, right?
Okay.
And so I was like, all right, I'm just gonna quit. And then I was like, but before I quit and work full time, I'm gonna take 6 months and go to Tajikistan to go do volunteer work. So I did that. So
Yeah.
I quit. I went there. I did that work, and while I was there, I mean, things were working much better than before, right? We were getting traction and we were getting customers, and I go, holy shit, this is cool.
Yeah.
And when I came back, I just went full time and I never looked back. That
What
was
was that's I forgot about your Tajikistan experience. So what you had already quit Deloitte by then now. So now you'd pivoted from your first company where you're making websites, then you moved to your second one where you're doing healthcare services online, education, healthcare services online, right? And then you say, okay, this is up and running, but now I'm gonna go commit 6 months of my time when I'm in the middle of a company to go overseas. I know Tim Ferriss had talked about this idea like a while back. I read one of his books or some shit. I can't even remember when, but it was something about how like you should be able to take 8 weeks away from any company that you're working on. The idea being that it should be that self-sustaining.
100%.
Were you there at that point? Did you feel like your company was there? And what made you say like, I feel comfortable leaving? Or were you like, you know what, fuck it. This is just like an obligation that I want. This is something that's like a passion of mine. I have to go do this. What was kind of the thought?
So the way it works basically is, you have, I feel that in any company that the way you should do things is you should scale up and you should plateau. Then you should scale up again and plateau. The problem happens is when you don't try to plateau and try to stabilize things and amend things, then your foundation becomes really weak, right? So what we had done was that was my first plateau. So we had scaled up, we had revenue coming in. It wasn't a lot, right? But things were stable. The code was stable.
That seems really counterintuitive to the model of business for the last 10 years. In the last 10 years of a bull market, you don't see a stop to stabilize. You see a growth curve that you want to be like parabolic. You want it to just keep going up, 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 up.
Yeah, but see, what happens is sometimes you grow too fast and things break behind you, right? Like you have to stabilize to make sure that all the teams catch up to it. For example, the sales team has to catch up to it. Your marketing has to catch up to it. Your dev has to catch up to it. You don't want to burn out resources. Again, for me, it wasn't all about money, right? It was about success, which is different, right? Yeah. So for me, I ride on success more than I ride on money. So at that point, the way I was thinking that, look, we're growing up. Let's give it 6 months for it to just stabilize, things to catch up, sales team to catch up. And that gave me an opportunity to leave the country. And those 6 months were one of the best in my life. And so the thing is that I have memories and I've got experiences that I would have never been able to do if I didn't pick up and leave.
What was it like in Tajikistan? And would you maybe recommend people going? I mean, would you recommend people out there?
100%, 100%. I mean, I went as a consultant to the AKDN Res Rep, and I was consulting on accounting and finance on their book systems, right? With the experience that I had, and while we were there, we were working on like all sorts of different, registration systems and financial systems, and so I mean, it was a it was basically a reset, like where we would expect somebody, like there were assignments that I would give to the team there, and I'd say, hey, can you guys come back? We go, like, sure, we'll come back in 3 days, and I go, no, I kind of meant 3 hours, right? Like 3 days, And so like the pace of work was so slow. There's completely different world altogether. So it gives you a different perspective, but it builds you up as a better human being. I think it's not always about the money. It's also about being a complete package in terms of
they have a different time value. It's not time value of money. I think for there it's like time value of peace or like time value of experience.
Yeah.
It's a different calculation running there, which is a liberating concept also, so that you aren't putting everything in dollars and cents numbers format every single time that you're analyzing anything, because that's exhausting
Yeah.
too. You know what I mean? That's like really frustrating and tiring. So
No, sometimes like I'll try to run fast and fast and fast. I'm like watching this one, and then sometimes I like tell myself like, dude, just chill out, relax. Like, what
right,
are you in a rush for? If you're not gonna enjoy life, what
right,
good is any of this money, right? I mean, it
right.
doesn't matter. So those are the kind of things that kind of tell you that. And then I learned a lot. I met some really cool people. I mean, I
Yeah,
wouldn't trade it for anything, but it was
yeah,
good. It was good. But business kept growing, and that's
that's
when you know the
that's
process
crazy.
is good.
Yeah, yeah,
Right?
for
That's
sure.
the right. It's
How long
process
was
over.
the business? How long was the business in place before you left? How many months was it up and running before you said, I'm gonna go to Tajikistan?
It was a year and a half.
Okay, that's a good amount of time too to put into a business. Most businesses close within the first year, right? So it's, once you've at least
Yeah,
gotten over that 1 year hump, you've obviously gone through some hurdles. You've obviously had some sort of a learning curve already, and
yeah,
that's what the
yeah.
plateauing I think is all about too, right? It's kind of like, okay, now we've gone through the learning curves. Let's just make sure that, like, let's reinforce our processes, basically, right? Let's make sure that we are actually stable and have a secure foundation.
Plus, plus, going away from something gives you the time to gain the love back for what you do,
Yeah,
right? Because
yeah,
that's important. Because sometimes you get into the rut of things and you're just trying to do it and do it and do it, and you realize that like you don't enjoy it as much as you do. So when I came back, I really wanted to come back and work, right? I
yeah,
really wanted to do more things and learn
right,
cool ideas. And it's not like when you're not physically at a company that you're not thinking about the work. You're always thinking about it. So the
right.
ideas, because but then your perspective becomes different, right? You're not thinking directly that code, that customer, that account, right? You're thinking the
A little bit
company, you're thinking,
bigger.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah. It's the
yeah.
health
So
of
it
the company
really
versus
helped
the
me.
health of one individual project or one individual issue, right? So yeah, that becomes a, and again, as a CEO, it's important that you kind of put all of that together. And if you're right in the middle of it all the time, it's really hard to get that bird eye, like that eagle eye view of what's kind of happening with your company. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
end up going to Tajikistan. Sorry, go ahead, continue.
No. So I mean that's true, right? Because that's super important. So that thing gave me that reset and then break, and the company kept growing. And even when I say plateau, it's not like it's just like the sales zone go and you're not building anything new. It's still growing, but you yourself are kind of getting out of that picture, so you can think better, you can process better. But when I came back, I hired two more developers
Yeah.
because I was like, you know what? What's the point in this profit? Let's just build bigger and better. So
Yeah.
we cut out all of it. We borrowed. I borrowed a little bit more money, and then just
You had
went.
borrowed money earlier before when you were launching these businesses, like not just from like your dad's $1,000 a month, but you had actually like borrowed money. You actually raised like
No,
money for your.
nothing. I've never borrowed any money. Even to this date, I have zero
Wait,
debt.
didn't I hear you just say I was borrowing money? Didn't I hear you just say that? I
I
just.
borrowed 5 grand from my dad.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah. So back to your dad. All right, cool,
Yeah,
cool.
so I did borrow. I borrowed another $5,000 from my dad.
I don't count borrowing from family as borrowing. You know, that's just like whatever.
No,
That's what it is.
I've never raised funds. As a matter of fact, that I want to raise funds for the new project, but I don't know. I've always enjoyed my freedom to do whatever I want, charge whatever I
Yeah,
want,
you
right?
want to be king of my own castle. You know, that's like the beauty of being that's like the weird thing that you see now. A lot of days, it's like with Uber or whatever, what was happening with them, where it's like the guy gets kicked off of his own board. He's no longer the CEO of the company. There's like a whole thing happening now. What if he even retains seats on the board or not? That's crazy. You can't to
Yeah.
be the founder of your own company and then to not have control over it seems weird to me. You know, it seems like a strange position to be in. You know, so
No,
yeah, I
it's
want to be the king of my own castle for sure.
yeah. I mean, I'm okay with it being a small castle. I have
Being
no
a small
problem.
cat, but it's my castle, right? It's
It's
like
my
I get to
castle,
make it as
right?
dirty as I want, clean as I want, decorate it the way I want. Exactly.
And it's for me, it's more about fun and life and enjoyment, right? And money only gives me so much value, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I've already had all the cool things that I've wanted in life, and now I'm like over them, you
Yeah.
know. So
Yeah.
it's different. No, but that was the start of the first company, and I think I mean, I still have that company. I mean,
Yeah.
I've
The health education services company now, and so you've been doing that, and when you start, what year did you start that?
oh man, 2004ish.
And how did you come up with that? I think I'm interested in that too. Like, how did you decide that this is the company that I'm going to go into? I mean, at that point, like, what is the inspiration to say this is the kind of company that I want to go into? Like, how do you see that there's a void or passion or whatever? How do you create that for this particular project?
So one thing was I wanted to go into a niche where not everybody was doing it. That's one. And the second thing that we've always looked for are competitors that's easy, that they have crappy websites that have potential, but they're not up to par. And a lot of people are stagnant. Like for example, like the glow stick stuff that we've done, right? Same thing. When we looked up all the companies that were selling glow sticks, their websites look like shit.
The glow stick side of it becomes another company that you end up getting into after this.
Right. After, right. But that's how the identification is, right? The identification is the fact that is there some type of a demand for it? And two, are the competitors that are in the thing, are they not big guys? Because if they're big guys, they're hard to beat, right? So especially like if you're like a lot of people that are trying to start off, right? They want to try to make like $1 billion, right? And that's not cool. Because what will happen is chasing that $1 billion, you're gonna most likely
you're gonna go broke, and you're gonna go fucking crazy because you're not gonna get there. I mean, you'll get there when you get there, but you're not gonna get there chasing that as an only goal. I think I agree with that.
And the issue is the fact that everybody gives examples of that one person, right? Of the Ubers of the world and Facebooks of the world, right? And everybody wants to start a social media company because Mark Zuckerberg was able to do it. But the issue is the fact that just for that one guy, there are 100,000 people that have failed. But the issue is that nobody sees the 100,000 that failed. They only see that one guy that's successful. So the issue is like when you try to go for big launches as your first business, the chances of failure are a lot more. What my advice for a lot of people would be is like try to look for a smaller niche where the reward isn't extremely high, but success rate is higher, especially when you're younger. So that way you can build on that success over time. Right?
And that makes sense. I mean, I think that's really practical advice. I know I've heard some interviews with like Peter Thiel, and I've heard him talk about. He's another billionaire guy that works obviously with Elon Musk and them a lot. And I remember hearing some of his speeches where it was like, competition is for losers, and it's not something that you should be doing. But I don't think that's practical. I think the reality is not every idea, a lot of things that are still truly new and unique and novel, but I think there's a lot of competition out there. And I think to me, I think optimizing for that reality and in your case saying, finding the holes, right? Finding the holes within the competition so that you can come in and make your own space and make your own niche. But the idea that you don't have competition, that's totally, I think, unrealistic in my.
See the other thing is that, look, it's fine to reach for the $1 billion businesses. Okay. It's okay. The question is when you want to reach for it, right? If that's the first thing right off the bat that you're doing for a brand new entrepreneur, then that's very demoralizing because you didn't make where you're trying to go. If you want to get to the $1 billion business or $100 million business, no problem. You can do that. Just don't make it your first one, right? As long as it's your second or your third venture that you're trying to build onto, then it's okay. But the first one, you want to try to find a niche, try to narrow down. Even when people are selling stuff on Amazon, right? You don't start selling things that are really like difficult. Like for example, diapers, right? I mean, there's a lot of projects that we launched that actually failed. Like I'm not telling you that everything I've launched worked. We had an adult diaper company called Diaper Express that failed.
Diaper company?
Yeah, adult diaper company called Diaper Express, right? We actually started selling AED defibrillators, which was called AED Masters. That didn't work. We wanted to sell a canes company, a walking canes company called Lifetime Canes. That failed. We actually launched cufflinks, ordercufflinks.com. That stuff didn't work. So look, the thing is, any of these markets that we got into when we were younger, when we didn't have a lot of experience and money that were bigger markets, it was hard to survive those.
So I think I guess I have a couple of questions like about the process and kind of the timeline for it. But I think one thing that comes to mind now is dealing with the failure, dealing with the loss. So when you had these companies that didn't take off, how long did it take for you to realize that this is just not working? And then what did you do once you realized it wasn't working? Like what was your thought process like there?
I think you give it 6 months to a year. And then you cut your arm off. That's it. Right? Because the thing is, sometimes going after companies that aren't working, you end up spending more money, but more than that, you spend a lot more time. And that time is a killer, right? So you learn from your mistakes, and then you pivot and you move around. Right now, we're working on 4 different SaaS companies, right? That we're launching, and honestly speaking, I don't know which one's really going to work, right? So you launch them, and then you see if you have traction, great. If you don't have traction, man, just wash your hands, walk away.
You don't think that by diversifying into so many different spaces at once that you spread yourself a little too thin and that you don't get to ideally focus and improve and fix the one that you're really working on?
So here's the way. So there are two approaches to this, right? I think that you definitely need to focus. But if your focus is if it's diversified in that general area, then I feel like it's okay. Like, for example, it would not be smart to do healthcare and then trying to sell
Adult diapers.
I don't know. Yeah, like it's not. Yeah, right. It's not smart to do that, because what happens is you can't synergize using the same stuff, right? So, for example, if I'm working on a SaaS software and then I'm working on another software, right? You can synergize a lot. You can use the same developers. You can still use the same marketing, execution plans. You can use the same content experts, right? So what you're doing is you can use the same stuff over and over again. It's like having a gas station and going out and buying a hotel, right? Like there are no synergies in that. But if you buy a gas station and buy another, an Arby's or something, that it's not as bad, because you can use the employees back and forth. You can use some of that learning.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. I think leveraging your staff so that you can kind of optimize like your foothold in multiple spaces that are related, so long as you're not doing it at the cost of one, or so long as the one that's like profit bearing for you, you're not losing your focus on that. That definitely does.
Absolutely. I think that's the key. And I've always been in the e-commerce world, right? Even when we sell health education or when we sell products, it's always been from a tech perspective.
Yeah.
Right. So even when we were doing when we were selling on Amazon, again, it's all been tech focused, right? So we're using technology, but the technology is written by the same people. SEO is the same, AdWords is the same, PPC is the same.
How long have you had the same team? Like this core team that you're primarily using for a lot of this stuff, whether it's for advertising, for SEO, for development, whatever, like the core team that you've had, have you, like, what kind of turnover have you seen with that particular team, or has it been relatively fixed?
For some of the senior team members, it's been fixed, right?
How do you make it so that it's fixed? Like what do you feel like you've had to do anything? For me, like from my personal experience, again, it's not as long as yours. The thing that I've seen that's worked for me is actually having a good relationship with that person.
Yeah.
That's been like the most important thing for me. It's not so much the money and the all that stuff. I think it's just the fact that we're simpatico. Like we see things similarly. Yep. We have a similar passion. We get along really well. Like, I don't know, all those things kind of work. Those are the things that have worked for me. What about for you?
100%. I think it's the same thing, right? Relationship is key. If somebody doesn't enjoy working with you, it doesn't matter how much you pay them, they're eventually going to quit.
And you probably don't even want them around, right? I mean, it's like,
like,
if someone doesn't like you or doesn't like working for you, how's that going to work? Yeah.
I tell my guys straight up that, look, if you're going to come, I need your brain and I need your heart, right? And I was like, if I don't have your brain and just your heart, it's not going to work. And if I have your brain, but I don't have your heart, it's still not going to work.
Yeah.
Right. So the idea is I tell them all the time, like, look, listen, if you don't have the heart to work here and we've done something to make it bad, I'll write you the letter of recommendation. Right. Follow your heart, because that matters more than anything else. And that's the only way you're going to excel. But look, it's fine. Right. I mean, we have processes in place where, knowledge is transferred. Everything is not done by a human. And to be honest with you, I've made those mistakes in the past where I've relied all my purchasing on one person, right? So that person knows it all. It's all in their brain. And then when they leave, and it's like, holy shit, like you're just going to walk out with all this knowledge and I don't have a structure around it.
So what do you do now? How do you battle that? How do you, like, do you either, so I guess you kind of touched on it right now, is actually the idea of knowledge transfers and making that easy. So how do you do that? Do you put it all into document form? Do you, like, what's the video form? What's the process there?
So you document it, you create processes around it, you have a good solid communication platform, and you have systems around it, right? Example, like you don't need to remember which supplier has what terms and all that stuff. Nowadays you have software for all of that, right? Yeah. So you take good notes, you write all that stuff down. If you have an account rep, you've got an account rep for your customers. The customers know this is your account rep, no problem. Everything's written down in notes. So what happens is if one sales rep leaves, it's no problem. at least they'll be gracious enough to give you 30 days, right? You're bringing another account rep, and then you
30 days, man. That's great. That's generous. I feel like that's the ideal world. I feel like a lot of times it's like, yeah, I'm not showing up. Like I'm out. Like I got.
Yeah, I mean, I think that happens. It depends on the type of, like, if you're looking at warehouse, people and stuff like that, then that may be a different story altogether.
Yeah, if you're the senior level staff, it's a little different, right?
Yeah, because they want to maintain a relationship, and if they work for you for a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, right? They don't want to burn that bridge, because remember, they still need to put that in LinkedIn, and they still need referrals and things like that, right? So at some point in time, if somebody's not happy, like, it's okay. You just make bite the bullet and you move things around. But process is important.
So I guess let's get back to the timeline. So you end up doing these like service businesses, these healthcare service businesses online, and then you end up pivoting at some point where you get into this cool glow stick business. And was there, when you made that pivot, so you went from service to then product. What did you learn there? What was that like?
Oh man, it's like basically an MBA degree. I mean, it's spent 7 years trying to get that degree. So basically, look, what
I'm still working on the degree. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a friggin' degree, right? So the idea was, like, the service business, it's cool because you have a small team, 1,000 square feet of office, you have 8-10 employees, and the revenue is great. The margins are amazing, right? But then the feel isn't there. The feel of having like a big space with a lot of employees, blah, blah, blah. So I said, you know what? I want to do something, where I have more people around me. There's big teams, there's meetings, there's structure, all that, right? So I said, well, so let's just do a Cool Glow, right? So, I worked with Mash and some of the other guys on Cool Glow and brought it to Dallas and stuff and build up on it. And I mean, I think the first day we started, our warehouse was 1,500 square feet, and all the products actually fit in the back of a U-Haul.
Oh,
right?
wow.
Literally.
Did you buy when you bought the merchandise and you bought the inventory, did you already have a warehouse in place, or did you have to go looking for a warehouse?
No, so initially it was in Houston with Mash, right?
Yeah.
With the partner. And then so he had the warehouse in play for his other businesses, right? So it was already there. I didn't particularly have a warehouse. So when I got the business, and I brought it to Dallas, I had to rent a warehouse.
Okay.
And I put it in there. So it was a small warehouse.
Did you make a mistake with that warehouse? Was that warehouse the right fit for you at the right time? Or did you feel like, man, I think I fucked up. I should have been looking for certain things in a warehouse that I didn't think of?
No, this warehouse was like 1,500 square feet. It wasn't even a warehouse. It was an office building that we just got out and bought some racks from Sam's and just stuck it down there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the first year we did what, maybe $90,000 for the entire year in sales. It was nothing, and then we built it up. So the year after, we did $200,000 in sales. So then we had to move to.
Was that growth? And I mean, I think it just depends, right? So I think 90,000 is going to be tough to sustain a business off of. You're just not going to get enough margin to pay for employees, things like that.
Yeah, nothing.
Product.
You were doing everything on our own at that point, right?
90 to 200. What is that first initial jump like? What happens there? Was it just organic growth? Was it a specific strategy in place? Like, what led to that?
Yeah, we did a lot of different strategies, right? Because I had experience from SEO and I had experience from PPC, right? Marketing the site. So we did that. Then we did a lot of testing in terms of conversion testing, because remember, service websites are different. Product websites have a shopping cart. Shopping carts have a lot more complications, right? You have deliveries, you have shipping rates, you have imports, there's like 500 more moving parts to it, right?
And again, at this time, there is today. I mean, when you say that it's complicated today, I don't think that would be the case at all, because you've got Shopify, you've got Square, you've got Wix, payment portals, everything is all set up for you, right? So it's funny when you talk to somebody like who has a custom website and you hear about like all the difficulties that they went through. It's like, wait, those things don't exist anymore. Like it's dated now. You know what I mean? So.
But at that point, it's also pros and cons, right? Yeah, but that stuff didn't exist. But at the same time, because of those things now, competition's a lot because anybody can get into it, right?
That's true. Yeah, the wall is down. Yeah, that barrier to entry is no longer nearly as much. Exactly. Now the barriers to entry might be like your ability to market the particular product, understanding the supply chain, things like that. So.
Exactly. And like Amazon didn't exist. Nobody was even selling that product on Amazon at that point, right? So Amazon wasn't even in the picture at that point when we started.
What year is this?
This was, I'd say, 2006-ish, maybe.
Oh yeah, I mean Amazon was there, but I think it was still doing books at the time, right? Or
Yeah,
had it
yeah.
transitioned away from books at that point? I don't know. I can't remember, but I think
Yep.
it was like used books or half price books that they had purchased or something, and that I think that was like their thing at the time in 2006. So yeah,
Yeah, so Amazon wasn't there. I remember our retail did really well. So in 3 to 4 years, we almost scaled the company to about 4 to 5 million in revenue, just by scaling it. And we kept
yeah.
moving warehouses. I mean, we moved like at least 4 or 5 warehouses because,
Would
you
you have recommended that earlier on when you saw that first trajectory, when you saw that first growth bump, or even when you first bought your merchandise or your product? Did you think to yourself, like, if you could go back and do it over, obviously you can't predict that you're going to have growth, but would you have recommended the same trajectory, buying small warehouse or using a small warehouse and then scaling up slowly? Or what would you have maybe done differently? Or do you think you didn't make a
yeah,
mistake there?
no, I'd be really screwed up. So yeah, yeah, we fucked up big time. So what we did was, this mistake cost us at least $3 to $4 million. And so what I would do right off the bat is when you see this particular growth, don't rent a warehouse, buy it, right? Instead
Okay.
of renting a 1,500, 2,000, 5,000 square feet warehouse, you just go out and buy buy a small, buy a 200, 300,000, $400,000 warehouse that's like 5,000 square feet, whatever the
But then
case
you
is.
lose the ability to move as quickly as you did when you were going through.
No, not bad, because nowadays you can easily rent it. You can always rent it, and what ends up happening is you maintain that asset over time, and that asset, even if that asset pays for itself,
Yeah.
you're still building asset,
You're
right?
building wealth. Right.
Right,
Yeah,
you're building
you're building
wealth,
wealth.
right?
Even though you may lose some liquidity by doing that,
Sure, it's
but
okay.
when you sell your business, the value of the business, your net worth, all that does go up as a result of making that
100%.
purchase. Okay.
Exactly, right? So, we started paying, $1,500, $2,000 in rent, and we went to $4,000 in rent, and then we eventually went to 9,000 in rent. In our last warehouse, which was 50 some thousand square feet, we were paying 25 grand in rent, right? Now imagine $25,000 a month, and you multiply
Yeah.
that over the course of 10 years or whatever the case is, like the span
Okay.
that you're doing it, right?
Right.
And what had also happened is over time, the value of the warehouses in Dallas went up, the retail value went up, right? So in this instance, if we had bought it right off the bat, we would have had 3 or 4 warehouses, or maybe even 2 warehouses that we would have owned.
Yeah.
So when we sold the business, that was part of it. So that's why I say we lost almost $3 to $4 million in that
That's an
mistake.
interesting way of putting it. Yeah, that's actually a really good way of putting it. Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that putting in rent would have been, yeah, at the end of the day, losing money. But you're right. By seeing it from that perspective, it at least forces you to say, okay, yeah, I could have, not only did I just pay that money out over 10 years and I knew I was going to be here, now I could have actually
Yep.
gotten an additional 3 million, 4 million, $5 million in my account.
Yep.
They could use when I'm going to sell the business or whatever. So more
Yep.
money. Yeah. So yeah, that's a fair point. So then, you end up pivoting into the Amazon side. So what was that? So you
We
end up
didn't
getting
have
into product and then you figure out your warehouse shit and then you start getting into Amazon. And that's been and is that like sort of and I guess in 2000, what year was that? What year did you go into Amazon? What year did you start?
Amazon was like 4 or 5 years after we started. So I think 2010, 11, something like that. 2010.
Okay. Was
But
there any consideration in that, or was it just like, hey man, this is a horizontal pivot. This is another platform. It'd be foolish not to get into this particular platform. Was that sort of the thought process there? Was it like, yeah, we got to get onto the space. It's obviously going to grow.
no, we realized that it's shooting ourselves in the foot. But we didn't have a choice to do that because our competitors were doing that and everybody else was doing that. And our retail sales like literally dropped like almost 20%, 25% off of our website because people are just going to Amazon to buy the same stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
so we're like, okay, this is horrendous. So
So how long did that process take? So a year goes by where you see like a decline in sales, and it's kind of hard to see that right again when you're right in the middle of it. It's very difficult to notice a 20% drop. As silly as that sounds, sometimes when you're in the middle of the work that you're currently doing,
it's
it's
hard
very hard. If
sometimes.
you're looking at day-to-day sales, it's really hard to track back and say, because you may notice some days are down, some days are up, but it's very hard to see a net decline unless you kind of again step back a little bit. So a full year goes by, and you realize, okay, we've lost about 20% margin or 20% of our volume to Amazon.
So we picked it up in about, I think, 6 to 8 months is at least what it took us to realize that that
Yeah.
Amazon started marketing for some of our keywords on AdWords, right?
Yeah.
Because remember, Amazon's also trying to gain traction because at
At
that
that time,
point
they
they
were
want
buying everything. Yeah, they were buying every ad space they could on every platform. Yeah.
exactly right. So they were coming in, so we started seeing new people that are competing. So we're like, oh
Yeah.
shit. But we also screwed up even in Amazon because we didn't create our own listings. We actually started selling on other people's listings.
Yeah, which
Right.
isn't something that you see as much anymore now, right? Is that still a
Yeah.
popular practice? I don't think that's really
No.
happening now. But before, it was like, I guess, considered hijacking a listing, right?
Correct, right? It was like we were the ones that were hijacking listings, and it was working fine because it was quick, right? You
Yeah,
get
yeah,
revenue right off the bat because
yeah,
you're selling like products. But then we realized very quickly that that wasn't a smart thing to do. So while we were still doing that, we were building our own brand. We got our brand trademarked, and then we started building. But then what ended up happening is there was FBA that came in, and there was fees, and there's additional math, and then you have a restock and a repricer, and you had like 50 of the
yeah,
things. So our software suite that was initially written for just an e-commerce company we started evolving that and started adding all the tools because back then the tools weren't as good.
yeah.
So we put all the tools in our system to help us because we had 13,000 SKUs, 14,000 SKUs at that time. We were sending a container or two per week into Amazon FBA, like literally to fill up an entire container.
And you went from doing like a few limited products as a service to then saying I'm going to do 13 to fucking 15,000 SKUs. That's like, I mean, it's like running like half of the size of a Walmart effectively. Like, I mean, that's how many SKUs. I mean, you're dealing with a shit ton of SKUs there.
Yeah.
Do you regret that pivot? Do you regret saying that I'm going to go into this space with this many fucking SKUs? Because again, it becomes a thing. It's sort of a weird phenomenon that everything has to grow. I don't know why, but everything just has to grow, right? So
we pivoted from glow to light up to non-light up to party supplies, and it was a mistake even back then because it's not about the quantity, the variety of products you're selling. It's about the power of the more popular stuff because you'll always have the 80-20 rule, and it's better to focus on the 80%. That's high moving. You have more power. You condense you have less.
Like of the 15,000 SKUs, there was probably like 800 that were really generating.
Correct, right. But the problem was for us to learn those products and how it worked. We had to kind of dabble into it.
Yeah, yeah.
I even remember to this day, we wanted to get into party supplies, so we got like a container of forks and spoons, but we were stupid because we got the high quality kind, and we got it in bulk packs of 100, and we didn't get a unique UPC on it through GS1, right? I had a $70,000 container that I sold for 10 grand because it wouldn't sell.
Yikes. And these are mistakes that you can only afford to make because you've got the backing of either strong product earlier, right? So it was like a calculated risk, obviously, right? At that point, you wouldn't probably put your money into that early on into the process. You would probably pick the time where it makes sense to now let's start investing, let's start growing. But yeah, that's got to burn a little bit. So, so you end up doing this. So you end up obviously growing your store. You end up looking for like optimizations. You start doing a lot of shit on Amazon, coming in as early as you did in 2011. And then at what point do you say, because I believe you sold Cool Glow, correct? Or
last year we sold it.
What was the thought process there when you were like, okay, this is no longer something that I want to own? You've dedicated almost 9 years to this thing.
Yeah.
It's, you raised it basically. So what happens there?
So I was really into it for the first 4 years, 5 years. And then after that, I started losing interest. So I backed away. I pulled away about 3 years ago, 3.5, 4 years ago, 3 years before I even sold.
Okay.
It was on autopilot. I didn't have to go into it. I was actually in like a semi-retirement state for like a year and a half.
How old are you right now?
I'm 35. But I wanted to retire a lot earlier, but I realized that I can't retire. I would kill myself. So we went into retirement, took more vacations than we needed, bought some cool fancy cars, got a high-rise apartments, and, spent a lot of stupid.
Did you spend any time in that high-rise apartment?
Barely. I mean, I had it for 3 years, but I barely spent it. I spent more time at home than there. We would just go there to party, but that's about it. But it's cool. I just had to go through a phase, So
you had to get it out of your system. You needed to go get out. I think you kind of mentioned it earlier. I mean, this is not like Tajikistan, but I mean, but the similar, but like the similar mindset. Maybe the reset. Maybe something that
Yeah.
can get you away and then decide how you want to come back. So you
Yeah.
come back to it. So you're semi-retired. Basically, you're kind of leaving. You're kind of out of the business about after year 5 into it. You still
Yeah.
hold it for a few more years, though, right?
Yeah, I did hold it for a few more years, but I was more excited about the software piece than anything. So I realized, you know what? Why not just pivot into the software? And so
Yeah.
that's why, because that's what I had done with CPR, anyways, right? With the healthcare company, that's what I had done with the healthcare education company. So it was mostly software. It was all around software, right? So that's the whole idea, right? So I went back into software, and now I enjoy it because I do software, and the warehouse is gone. We got to like a couple of hundred
How did you
employees. So
find a buyer? How did you find a buyer for your business?
I didn't find it. My competitors came to me,
Oh, great, great.
and they said they want to sell because
Had they been poaching you for a while, or was it sort of like serendipitous where it was like, okay, I'm ready to exit, and these guys were just coming in with the right offer at the right time?
Yeah, it was just timing. So the biggest thing was that our warehouse lease was coming up to be an end,
Yeah.
right? And so
This is a 50,000 square foot warehouse, which by the way, was like immaculate. It was a beautiful warehouse. It was like, I mean, it was perfect. I mean, it was incredible the areas that looked like that were out of whack were like the internal small areas, but the actual warehouse itself was beautifully run. Yeah, it was an amazing warehouse.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I mean, even that, we were idiots initially because we thought we didn't need any racking. Why we need racking? We have so much space, right? So we moved in all our pallets without racking, and then we realized, wait a minute, this is dumb. You got to go horizontal. If you're going to buy a 25-foot ceiling, you got to go horizontal. So then, anyways, there are a lot of stupid things, and learned forklifts and learned.
You mean you got to go vertical? You mean you got to go up, right?
You got to go up. Yeah, sorry, you got vertical. Is that horizontal? No, vertical. You got to go up.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is a mistake I think a lot of people have made, where they've gone wide in their warehouses and not up. And I think up is the way to go. And I think now everybody kind of knows that a little bit.
Well, we didn't know how a forklift worked, so we bought our forklifts, like a used one, and that thing had oil spills everywhere. And then we actually built our own WMS system, and we got our own guns, and we did our own software. And then we realized this is stupid. There's
like existing software out there. Yeah.
Out there for like $100 that they'll give you everything.
So this is like obviously these are some of the major issues that you're going to run into when you're trying to scale a product-based business, right? Yep. So luckily you end up finding a buyer. You already have a ton of data that you've been collecting, that you've been using. You built out your own internal software anyway to optimize your existing Amazon store. And before you sold your store, do you feel comfortable saying what your annual revenues were like approximately? You want to give like a ballpark number?
It was plus the 10 million mark.
Okay. I mean, it's obviously like it's pretty well set in stone that you guys were doing really well on the Amazon side. Whatever the margin maybe is a different conversation. So you end up saying, okay, I've already got a ton of experience. I've built a ton of data. I've got a ton of data. I know how to optimize for listings. Now I want to start working on software that other Amazon store owners can use. Is that correct? That was the process. And so walk me through that.
So basically, we had the software, and I would show it to a lot of people, when they came in and they go, hey, I want to use the software. And I go, no, you can't, because it's too integrated into our existing CMS, right? Yeah. So one day I was like, you know what? I enjoy doing this, screw it. Let me just work on that. So we started doing is we started extracting software out of, the Coolwell platform and built a SaaS model. So when I sold the company, I sold everything but the technology. I didn't sell the technology or the software itself.
And you knew that you were going to carve that out for yourself because you were going to enter this space. You already had this like pivot in your mind already, right?
Exactly.
Because normally you kind of sell the entire business typically, right? And then even the patents you typically. Did you have patents or anything on any of your existing?
Yeah, we had a lot of patents, a lot of trademarks. All that was good. It's just the software piece that I didn't include.
Okay. So you end up selling all that, and then. Yeah, so you retain the technology side of it, and then so what was the thought process there?
Just to go soft, man. I just don't want to go into the dream that I had of a big warehouse and a lot of people, and kind of walk into these board meetings and all that stuff. I think, nah, I don't want to do that anymore. So so it was completely 360, right?
Yeah. I guess almost like where, exactly. You kind of started right back, you kind of ended up right back where you started. Did you retain any of your staff too when you did that?
So a lot of sales staff and a lot of the other staff that we had that had to go with the company, they're still with the company. and some of the tech developers and stuff like that that the buyers didn't want, we held on to them.
Okay. Did you negotiate that up front, or was it sort of like they were like, hey, we don't need the staff, or were you like, I specifically want these people?
Yeah, there were a few people that were off the table with discussions, and then the rest it was negotiable, right?
Okay.
So,
Got it.
So there were a few people that.
How long was that transaction period, by the way, too, for the sale? Like how many months or how many weeks did it go?
3 months.
3 months.
We didn't have time because our warehouse lease was expiring. So if I signed another extension, then there's no selling for another 3 to 4 years.
Right. And you didn't own that warehouse either. Is that correct?
No, it did not. And so
would have owning it would that have made it easier to sell? Because it would have put you in a better bargaining position, probably. You think, right?
No, it wouldn't have mattered because the people that bought the company weren't in the city anyways.
Oh, okay.
So we shipped all of it to their warehouse, and I would have had a warehouse that I would have owned, and it would have been on rent right now.
Right.
So that would have been an asset that I would have
lost an income stream actually instead. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would have income stream or whatever, even if it just pays for its own debt, right? It's good enough.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that was a fuck up, but whatever, it is what it is.
Yeah. So then you start. So the name of the website is Seller Mobile. I got it up here. So let me share the screen too. Let me show everybody what the website looks like. And I guess just talk us through it. So what was this website kind of built to do? What is this program? What is this particular application built to do?
So basically, we use this tool to build our Amazon sales, right? I mean, everything that you see there, which is like PPC and lost sales and notifications and competitor analysis, right? We use this to basically build out our Amazon platform, right? Yeah. Our Amazon account. So what we did is we took all of this and we converted and put it into a SaaS model. And when we built it into a SaaS model, what we actually did is sellermobile.com was actually a company that was existing for the last 7 years. I went out and bought the company because it was the software was broken. It was a mobile company. It was only a mobile application. So I just didn't want to.
How did you find them?
One of my friends texted it to me.
Okay.
And said, hey, this guy's selling, right? Yeah. So literally, I bought it for less than $100,000, but it was a failing company.
Okay.
And so literally 2 weeks after I bought it, the application failed. The mobile app failed. So we'd never written a mobile application before, and so we're like trying to figure out how to write a mobile app, right?
Right.
But the cool thing was that it came with like 30,000 accounts.
Okay. Sorry, one last thing before you get into 30,000 accounts. The transition, was that transition something that you had been prepared? You talked about transitions before. So were you already developing this while you were still owning Coolglow, or had you already sold Coolglow and then started working on this?
No, we were already developing it.
Okay.
It was already in development. Yeah. So it was already in development. So I knew that was the route I was going to go. To be honest with you, if I didn't have this route, I would not have sold the company because it was already on a good trend. I mean, we were scaling revenues like crazy. Yeah. Right. I mean, we're glad that we sold it before all this Corona stuff hit. Because that market's gone, but that wasn't planned, obviously, right? That was just luck. But regardless, this whole thing is going to revert back, and we'll be back to normal. But if I didn't have another thing to work on, build on. Now, obviously, we still have the healthcare training companies and the few others that we have that we're working on, right? Investments, and there's some other stuff too. But this was what I wanted. It was my passion. So it was like for me to leave. But even if I didn't sell Coolglow, I would have still left. I was already out. I was out 3 years ago.
Okay.
So we started building this.
Yeah. So now this current app, you come in and you already have 30,000 existing accounts, but you've got an app that's obviously not working too, right? So you said that the code had totally failed.
Yeah. So there were 30,000 accounts, but they weren't paying accounts. They weren't, they had bought the app sometime in the past, but these guys were sellers, but they weren't. So what we did is we built out the mobile app again. It took us about 6 to 8 months to do that. Then we built.
Did you have to hire somebody new? Did you have to hire somebody new for that, or did you guys just learn it yourself?
No, it's interesting that you ask. So what I realized that we were going to do this tech development thing regardless, right? At any given point in time. So I started building a team, but this time we built it offshore in Vietnam.
Okay.
So we started off at 5 developers, and then we added another 5 and another 5. So now we have 40 of them. But basically, we built this team together in Vietnam to be able to run all our software companies.
Yeah.
So yeah, we did hire a lot, but we hired a lot of on the dev side of things.
Got it. Okay, got it. And so you end up getting the app fixed. Obviously, you end up and I guess some of the major issues, what have those been now since after you crossed over that one major hurdle of not having a functioning app, not having a user base that was using the application but wasn't paying for it. So you got them to obviously start paying for it. Was that sort of the next major hurdle for you to say, how do we start generating revenue off this existing user base?
Yeah. So when we first started, again, it was like, a couple of $1,000, and now we've grown it about 20, 30 fold from where we were. And it's and we're getting new clients, and we're convincing old clients, and every time we drop in a new feature, we have more people that want to bring on board, and we're trying to go for the all-in-one. Of course, some of our competitors are big in the market, they're very strong. But for me, it's fun again, right? I enjoy doing it. So every day I'm like looking at new things, but I understand the business really well, and I understand the tools from a seller's perspective. So it's easier for me to know what tool will work and what features will work.
And I think that's a fair point, because I think that now coming in as sellers, I mean, I'm a seller. I think there are a lot of people who are sellers on Amazon now. I think it's kind of cool that you have this tool out there, the software out there for people to use, for people to start getting actively acclimated with. I know I still need to play with it a lot more. I still need to do a lot more with it. But the fact that all those tools are available for people to use, for people to start actually finding ways to become profitable, because Amazon is becoming a weird beast now where it's like, you may not actually find that much profit on there. And finding those 800 products or the 1,000 products that are your most powerful products, you end up almost go through 15,000 or 14,000 products. You know what I mean? So I think your app might help you. I think your app might help narrow that down and maybe save you some money down the line.
So there's two sides to the Amazon world and stuff, right? One is the research side, and then one is the operation side, right? Yeah. So we focused on the operation side for the last 2 years. So if you have sales, then our app is really good for it, right? Yeah. But when you're trying to figure out what to sell, then we're not one of the ones that are leading in that space at this point. Yeah. In some time in the future, that could definitely be the case that we will get into. But right now, if you are a seller and you need to operate your account, then we have one of the best tool sets to operate the account. Does that kind of make sense? So,
yeah, no, totally. That absolutely makes sense, because even in operating an existing account, there's multiple things happening, right? One is sustaining the account. And then again, the second thing is bullshit phenomenon where you have to grow it. And again, it just because if you're not growing, somebody else is, and then you feel smaller, and then you have to go, you have to go chase it, and so on and so forth. It's this weird thing that exists out there. So I guess one of my last questions for you now is, I mean, you're obviously baked into the space. You've got lots of experience on the SaaS side, on the product side. When you were kind of doing your and I've noticed this a lot with regards to competition, how much of your time is spent focusing on competitors? How much of your time is spent focusing on internal projects where you're not even looking at your competition? Kind of what's that balance? Because people will say, you have to be so customer centric and so customer focused only that you don't look at your competition. And again, I don't know if that's realistic for some people. I think the bigger you become, maybe the less you do it. But I guess kind of in your experience, what has that journey been like for you in terms of looking at competition?
So I've always, so my competitors have always changed over time, right? In the past, when we had the companies, when you're smaller, you're not looking at the really big guys because they're just so far away from you. They're not really your competitors yet. So you look at the competitor that's in your arena, right? Yeah. You're trying to look at that. And to your question, right? Do you look at absolutely. You have to have multiple focuses, right? You got 24 hours in a day. You can research your competitors, but at the same time, yeah, you could do it all. Being blind to one dimension is just stupid, I think, right? So you should know it all, right? So you got to look at your competitor. You got to look at your focus. You got to look at what your customers want, blend the approach, right? And kind of work. But I think keeping an eye on competitors is important, but the competitors change over time. So as you grow, as you get bigger, right? When you're driving, it's very, you look at the rear view window for sure, right? I mean, you've got the mirror there, but your focus is always ahead, not in the back, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean you don't look at the back. you're focusing less in the back. So same thing for us, right? We're looking at our competitors that are ahead of us. Sometimes when we overtake a competitor, right, then they become a little bit more on the rare side. You still want to keep a small eye on them because you want to make sure that they're not going to come back forward, right? But
Yeah.
or if they are, then you got to speed up a little bit too. But you always want to.
You got to find a pivot, right.
Right. So I try to balance it. Right now for some of the other companies, we are a little bit more the market leaders. So it's not as much that we're looking at competitors. But now for Seller Mobile, I'm focusing more time on competitors because, I have to get to that level. Now, once you get very close to your competitor in terms of tool sets and in customer base, right, then your focus on competitors gets a little bit less and more on your scope and your product line and so it's not like one or the other. It's just where your timeline is and where you are in terms of your business.
Right. And I guess one last thing, I guess before we kind of wrap this up, it's like, where are you at now with your opinion of retirement now that you're back in kind of the thick of it? So what are you thinking about that? What are you thinking? Like another 5 years, another 3 years, another 10 years? What are you thinking?
No, I think this is my retirement, to be honest with you. It is my retirement. I don't need anything more. I have enough money to survive. I've got enough money for my kids and their kids to survive. We're working on wealth management, which I never thought would the day would arise where you
setting up a trust. Yeah.
What the fuck is a trust? All that, right? So it's like, hey, what do we do with this? Like, so I think that I am in retirement.
Did you see this playing out like this when you were back in, like when you were I guess when you were a kid, when you were in high school, or when you were in college? Like, did you see yourself, or when you were at Deloitte, did you see it playing out kind of like this, or was this all kind of been a little bit of a surprise for you? Kind of, what has that been like?
Not at all. I never seen myself played out like this. But the thing is that when I did go through a bad phase of spending money pointlessly. Like I did go through that phase. I mean,
I think everyone goes through that a little bit, but
like it's like when you go to try to go buy a Rolls Royce, and then you like the Lambo and you decide to buy that cash, right? Because you just like
what were you, a rapper or what? What the fuck?
It's like okay, so like those are the dumb things that you've done, but it's done and it's over with, right?
Lesson learned, and you had a good experience out of it too.
Yeah, it was fun and stuff, right? But the thing is that I feel like you're growing up with time, right? And so now I feel like I am in a retirement state. As long as I'm enjoying what I'm doing every day, I could take vacations. I mean, I take 60 days of vacation every year, so like. It's dude, come on.
But you know what the funny thing is? Like, good luck telling your kids that they can't get something when you're like, Dad went and bought a fucking Rolls Royce with cash. What was that like when you went and put the cash down? Like, how long did it take the bank to get the money out to give you to go purchase?
Oh, we got a cashier's check.
Yeah, okay.
We got a cashier's.
You didn't actually come out with like a suitcase of cash. Okay.
No, we used to do that. We used to go to the bank and try to pull out like 10, 20 grand at a time. And they would like, hey, listen, if you're going to do this, give us heads up, advance notice. Because like
they don't have that much
tellers are sitting there, like figuring out. So we did a lot of stupid things.
Right. You've obviously learned, and it seems like you're at a good place now. And it seems like you're back to what you love. You hate product. It seems to me like I stay away from product for a little while.
Yeah, we're staying away from product, and even if I do product, it's gonna be 3PL and like all that stuff. I'm not going to a warehouse again. And
3PL is like it's third party warehousing, right? Effectively.
Yeah. So third party warehousing. So I'm not touching the product. I'm not getting into a warehouse and any of that. And if I ever get into a business, it'll be with a partner, and the partner is gonna handle the logistics. I'm not getting into the middle of it. No, but you have to go through that time to realize. But now I think the next 10, 15 years, I'm gonna play in the software world. Right. We're launching like 5 or 6 different types of softwares at the same time. Because we can, it's a good, and we've built a really cool, strong framework to build upon. So it's fun. I review it every day. I give them feedback, and then they go back at it. I
know I owe you some feedback on that too. So I'll definitely be more active on it this year.
It's
gonna be a big play for us too. So I think I want to say thanks, man. I think there's a lot of good takeaways from this. I mean, I think at least the idea of fucking being able to like, I guess, not being afraid to ask for help in the beginning. And if you don't know how to do something, looking it up yourself, right? At least early on doing that. Then as you got older and more mature about it, you were like, fuck it. If it's not worth my time, I'm going to go get the help and pay for the help if I need to, because my time value of money calculation's there. When you were in college, you did the smart thing of kind of diversifying a little bit and taking courses and things that you knew were going to potentially matter down the line. Probably things you were passionate about in the beginning, but you realized maybe I'm not the best at it. But those tools still ended up paying tremendous dividends down the line. So you never quite know what courses will pay off, but at least pick the ones that you think that there's some potential future value. And comp sci is obviously one of them. Finance is one of them. Physics. I don't know about physics. I don't know what. I don't know if you're able to use that experience yet, but maybe in the future. Who knows? So yeah, and then following what your passions are. You've done a good job of that too. So you're obviously passionate about not waiting around for 10 years to get serious money. You wanted to go chase it right there and then. You relied on support systems. You took the right breaks at the right time. It seems like a lot of cool takeaways for I think a lot of people in business. I know I got a lot out of this too. So I want to thank you for your time, man. I appreciate it. I know your time is worth a lot, So I appreciate
was just gonna go watch a movie next. So
yeah.
okay.
All right. All right, man. Well, I guess, thanks a lot again, man. Appreciate it. And I'll see you soon.
Yeah. Sounds good, buddy. Thanks.
All right, bro. Thanks.
All right. Bye.